Kai West grew up in a modest British household. To anyone looking from the outside, he was just an ordinary young man. A university student, fond of video games, often spending late nights in the library poring over thick coding manuals. But beneath this ordinary surface, something darker pulsed within him. At the age of 12, he wrote his first cracked software. By 14, he had already broken into his school's computer system, quietly reading his teacher's emails without being caught. At first, it felt like a prank, a child's mischief, but deep down it ignited something much more dangerous in him, a hunger for power. What thrilled Kai was not the money or recognition, but the idea that he could see what the rest of the world could not. It was as if he was becoming the invisible master of everyone else's secrets. By the time he was 16, Kai had installed Tor browser, memorized onion links, and stepped into the shadowed corridors of the dark web. A world unlike anything on the surface internet unfolded before him. Forums buzzing with illegal weapons, fake passports, human trafficking networks, drugs, stolen credit card dumps. This was no longer hacking for fun. It was an empire of shadows. Here Kai adopted a new name, IntelBroker. At first he dealt in small things, selling minor password dumps and email breaches, but soon he realized the real money and the real power lay in selling secrets. Secrets were worth more than gold. Secrets broke families, collapsed companies, and could even shake nations. In 2022, Kai executed his first major attack. Target, a major American hospital network. Within weeks, he had broken through layers of outdated security firewalls and siphoned off the entire medical database. Tens of thousands of patient records, DNA tests, addresses, medical histories, psychiatric evaluations, private doctor notes, all stolen and encrypted on his drives, and then leaked to the dark web marketplace. One victim, a young woman named Sarah, would later testify to the FBI. It felt like my privacy had been stolen forever. Suddenly, anyone could know about my illness, my weaknesses. When I walked into the hospital, I felt like everyone already knew my secrets. This was the moment IntelBroker was born. The world of cybersecurity would never forget his name again. By 2023, IntelBroker was no longer just a shadow in hacker forums. He had become a specter haunting boardrooms, bedrooms, and bureaucracies across the globe. Dozens of companies, banks, and even government offices reported data breaches. Each CEO would receive the same cold, taunting email. Your sensitive data is in my possession. Pay in Bitcoin, or tomorrow the world will see it on the dark web. Some paid, most paid, and yet data would still leak. Because Kai didn't just want money, he wanted domination. He wanted people to live in constant fear of him. It wasn't extortion, it was psychological warfare. The victims' voices. This was no longer about databases. This was about broken lives. Emma's daughter in London, a woman named Emma, recalled the day her 13-year-old daughter's school records were leaked. Her photos, her home address, everything was on the dark web. My little girl couldn't sleep without the lights on anymore. She was convinced someone would come for her. The American banker. A New York banker described the devastation. My entire financial history, family details, even my children's school schedules. All stolen, all sold. I felt like a shadow was always behind us. My family was never safe again. These weren't just data breaches. They were nightmares made real. Every victim felt hunted, stripped bare, violated by an invisible predator. IntelBroker had now reached the top of the most wanted list. The FBI and Europol formed a joint task force dedicated solely to tracking him down. They poured resources, time, and manpower into tracing the phantom who left nothing behind but fear. But Kai was no ordinary hacker. He used layers upon layers of VPNs. He hid behind compromised servers on 3 continents. He even built his own encryption tools to erase footprints faster than investigators could follow them. One Europol agent would later admit in frustration, "It felt like we were chasing a ghost. He was everywhere, yet nowhere. Every time we got close, he dissolved into the shadows." In 2024, IntelBroker escalated his terror. This time his target wasn't a hospital or a bank, but a defense contractor tied to NATO. What he uncovered was catastrophic. confidential military base maps, secret project blueprints, internal communications about global defense strategies. When the leak hit the dark web, panic spread across governments. Multiple countries shut down entire networks overnight, fearing what else had been compromised. News headlines screamed, "IntelBroker breaches the world's most secure systems." This wasn't just a hack anymore. This was a global nightmare. But even the best predators slip. In February 2025, Kai made his first mistake. While posting a new message on a dark web forum, a minor glitch in his encryption left behind a faint trace of his real IP. It was like a ghost leaving a single fingerprint behind. The FBI pounced. The trail led to a small hotel in France. That night, French police and FBI agents surrounded the building in a joint operation. The team moved quietly, their guns drawn. The air was electric with tension. When they finally burst through the door, they found laptops, hard drives, crypto wallets stacked in piles across the room. And in the middle, calmly sitting with headphones around his neck, was Kai West, unmoved, almost serene, as if he had been expecting them all along. Kai was handcuffed and dragged away. The FBI declared victory. Europol called it the largest cybercriminal arrest of the decade. But there was a problem. The stolen data, petabytes of secrets, intimate files, private histories, was already out there. It was circulating endlessly on the dark web, copied and recopied across thousands of hidden servers. Nothing could ever erase it. One victim summed it up in chilling words. "When I look at my son, I wonder, is his future already in someone else's hands?" The arrest didn't end the horror. The horror had already been unleashed, forever. Today, Kai West sits behind bars, but his shadow lives on. The databases he stole, medical reports, psychiatric files, intimate photographs, government secrets, still circulate in the underworld of the internet. They will never be deleted. And that is the true horror of the dark web. Its wounds never heal. Its ghosts never leave. Because once your secrets are exposed, they no longer belong to you. They belong to the darkness. Conclusion. The story of Kai West, aka IntelBroker, reminds us that the dark web's terror is not confined to screens or cables. It seeps into bedrooms, into families, into the deepest corners of our lives. It is not just virtual horror, it is real, and it lingers long after the lights go out. Ross William Ulbricht, later to be known by the ominous alias Dread Pirate Roberts, grew up in Austin, Texas. To the outside world, he was nothing more than an ordinary young man, intelligent, friendly, a lover of computers, and someone who could spend hours buried in philosophy books at the local library. But behind his warm smile, Ross carried a vision that would change lives and destroy many. From a young age, Ross believed the world was chained by governments and laws. He was deeply fascinated with libertarian philosophy, dreaming of a world where individuals were completely free, ungoverned, unmonitored, and one day, that dream twisted into something much darker. Ross asked himself a dangerous question. What if I created a platform where people could buy and sell anything, free from government control? That single thought gave birth to the Silk Road. In 2011, Ross quietly launched a website hidden deep within the Tor network. It could only be accessed using the Tor browser, through encrypted onion links. Its name, Silk Road. At first, it looked harmless. A few anonymous sellers listed items, gadgets, books, minor tech equipment. But then, someone posted drugs. That was the spark that turned Silk Road from an experiment into a nightmare. Buying drugs on the street had always been dangerous. Dealers, police, robberies. But Silk Road changed everything. Buyers could order heroin, cocaine, LSD, meth, all from the comfort of their bedroom. Payment was in Bitcoin. The package arrived like any ordinary parcel in the mail. No faces, no names, just pure anonymity. Within months, Silk Road had become the Amazon of drugs. And every day, more people joined. As Silk Road grew, it caught the attention of law enforcement. The DEA, FBI, and IRS began quietly monitoring the platform. But bringing it down was not simple. Silk Road operated as if it didn't exist in the physical world. All communication was encrypted, payments were in Bitcoin, and identities were hidden behind Tor's layers of secrecy. Meanwhile, horror stories began surfacing. Students overdosed on drugs purchased online. Criminals used Silk Road to buy fake passports and weapon licenses. One grieving father's words are forever written in FBI reports. "My son ordered heroin from his dorm room. He never woke up. I still don't understand how something so deadly was just a few clicks away." Silk Road wasn't just a marketplace, it was a ghost factory. Its products invisible, its victims very real. At the center of this empire stood a faceless figure, Dread Pirate Roberts. Ross, hidden behind the mask, ruled like a digital godfather. He wrote long philosophical posts on freedom and anonymity. He mediated disputes between sellers and buyers. He was adored by his users, feared by his enemies. But Silk Road soon spiraled into something darker. Some users began offering murder-for-hire services. Hitmen contracts appeared in listings. While many turned out to be scams, the FBI uncovered chilling chat logs suggesting otherwise. In one leaked message, Ross himself allegedly wrote, "This guy is a threat. I want him gone." Whether those contracts were real or staged, the implication was terrifying. Silk Road was no longer just a drug bazaar, it was a marketplace for death. By 2013, the FBI finally found a crack in the empire. A sharp-eyed investigator noticed an old post on Stack Overflow, a tech forum. It was someone asking about configuring a Tor server. The username, Ross Ulbricht. That tiny breadcrumb became the first stone in the wall of evidence. For months, undercover FBI agents infiltrated Silk Road, making purchases, tracing every movement, mapping every pattern. Ross was careful, painfully careful. He worked exclusively on an encrypted laptop. Agents feared that if he closed the lid, years of evidence would vanish forever. So they devised a trap. October 2nd, 2013, San Francisco Public Library. Ross sat at his usual spot. Laptop open, eyes locked on his screen. Two undercover agents staged a loud fight behind him, shouting and shoving. Distracted, Ross turned his head. In that single instant, a female agent lunged, grabbing his laptop before he could hit a single key. Seconds later, FBI agents stormed in. "Hands up! Don't move!" The reign of Dread Pirate Roberts collapsed in an instant. Ross's arrest exploded across global headlines. To some, he was a villain. To others, a revolutionary. But to the victims' families, he was a grim reminder of how technology could kill as easily as it could connect. In court, parents of overdose victims testified. One mother broke down as she said, "I found my son's body. In his hand was the package, shipped straight from Silk Road." Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to life in prison plus 40 years, without the possibility of parole. The courtroom gasped. It wasn't just a punishment for Ross, it was a warning to the entire hidden world of the dark web. And yet, Silk Road's shadow lived on. Dozens of copycat marketplaces sprung up, some even more ruthless than the original. Drugs still shipped, Bitcoin still flowed, and the ghost of Dread, Pirate Roberts, lingered in every corner of the web. This is not just the story of a programmer, it is the story of fear. A fear born in the shadows of the internet, spreading into living rooms, schools, and morgues. The Silk Road proved one horrifying truth. On the dark web, a single click can erase the line between life and death. Life often tricks us into believing we are safe. Small towns and quiet cities lull people into thinking, danger lurks only in dark alleys of big metropolises. But the worst fear is the one you cannot see. The shadow that hides in the spaces between your breaths. Emma, a university student in Manchester, lived a simple, peaceful life. Classes, library visits, coffee shops with friends. Her world was small but calm. Until one day a friend laughed nervously and said, "Have you seen this? Someone's saying you've been cheating on me." Emma frowned. On her friend's phone was a chilling message. "Can I tell you a secret? Emma was with someone else last night." Emma's stomach dropped. "This is nonsense," she snapped. At first it felt like a stupid prank, but then the same message appeared on more of her friends' phones. The next morning, a fake Facebook profile appeared. Emma's name, Emma's photo, but with posts she had never written. It was as if someone had stolen her shadow and begun to wear it. This wasn't a prank, it was a game. And the one playing it was Mathew Hardy, a socially awkward man whose greatest weapon was his computer. At night, Hardy spent hours on dark web forums, absorbing knowledge about identity theft, fake accounts, and stalking tactics. For him, this became an addiction. He learned how to ruin lives without ever leaving his bedroom. His weapon was deception and fear. He would call victims, disguising his voice, and whisper the same haunting phrase, "Can I tell you a secret?" That single question was enough to unravel someone's sanity, because every person hides a secret fear. Victims began to feel as though the walls of their homes were paper thin. Even when their phones were on silent, they felt phantom vibrations. They felt watched, constantly. For years, Hardy targeted dozens of women. Some lost their jobs when fake, intimate screenshots were sent to their bosses. Some had their marriages collapse. Some fell into severe psychological breakdowns. One victim later confessed in a documentary, "I felt like my own shadow was my enemy. Even when I was alone in a room, I felt someone watching me." Another said, "My phone turned into a horror movie. Every notification felt like a warning bell." This wasn't just harassment. This was a haunting, except the ghost was real, and his name was Mathew Hardy. Victims would often describe it the same way. He wasn't touching us, but he lived with us. Hardy's calls usually came at night. When the victims answered, they heard only breathing. And then softly, almost lovingly, he whispered, "Can I tell you a secret?" And then the line would go dead. Women would spend sleepless nights staring at their windows, convinced he might be standing outside. Was he at the door? In the shadows of the street? Police reports piled up, but Hardy was clever. He used VPNs, burner SIM cards, and dark web tools to cover his tracks. Victims began to lose hope. They felt like he was untouchable. This was no longer stalking. This was pure psychological horror. Finally, after years of torment, technology caught up with him. By 2020, Greater Manchester Police launched a meticulous investigation, tracking his online patterns for months. One evening, officers arrived at Hardy's house. Inside, he sat at his computer, about to send his next chilling message. They arrested him before the words could leave his keyboard. For a moment, victims felt relief. But the truth was, the scars ran far deeper than any prison sentence. In court, Hardy was sentenced to 9 years in prison, but victims admitted, "This doesn't bring us peace. He's in jail, but his fear is still in us." Netflix later released a documentary titled, "Can I Tell You a Secret?" Even on screen, the victim's eyes still carried the weight of fear. This horror was not supernatural. No ghost, no demon. The monster was human. A man who hid behind a glowing screen, dismantling lives with whispers. Even today, many victims struggle. Some can't bear the sound of a phone ringing. Some abandon social media forever. Some require therapy to live without looking over their shoulder. The story of Mathew Hardy is a reminder. Sometimes the scariest ghosts don't come from graveyards or forests. The scariest ghosts live behind the other side of your phone screen. This is the true horror of Mathew Hardy, a man who turned the everyday sound of a phone notification into a weapon of terror.